so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special episode dedicated to none other than you, the P-heads themselves. I am your P-head enthusiast and hostess for the day, Alexa Hauser. I have been blessed to have the experience of helping out with Positive Head social media for the better part of a year. And through my digital interactions, I began to realize, as did Brandon, that we have some incredible beings listening to this show who are taking the information that Brandon puts out through the podcast and using it to transform their lives and create wonderful things. You listeners are all a huge part of the life force that propels this show forward through time and space, and we think it's time to bring forth some of you beautiful reflections and delve a little deeper into this collection of energy that is the Positive Head community. So as we shine the spotlight on our listeners, what we'll have them do is share their stories of how they attracted Positive Head into their life, the transformation it's facilitated for them, and what they're focused on creating now that they're in a more positive headspace. Also, this episode of the Positive Head podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hello, all you positive heads. On this week's P-Head Posse episode, our guest is Positive Head listener Kelsey Bornstein. Kelsey is a galactic activator, artist, Kundalini yoga teacher, and way shower. She's committed to living her life authentically and transparently to be a guiding light for others on the path. Hi, Kelsey. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Alexa. Thank you. It's fantastic to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to finally connect with you. I know we booked this one a while ago, and yeah. I've been looking forward to it. And man, your intro has so many awesome descriptive words. I'm so excited to hear what all of this is about. But before we get into that, why don't we go back to the beginning and hear about what your journey has been like up until this point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty elaborate, but I'm just going to kind of flow through it. So
okay,
I began. Thanks. Most of my life, I grew up in Kansas and New Jersey. I grew up in a Jewish family, but I was pretty severely prejudiced against in Kansas, which incidentally, I had a huge aversion to religion. And looking back, I see that kind of left me as this open, malleable kind of palette to be contacted by other beings, where my influence wasn't already kind of determined already by a religion. So that was actually a blessing in disguise. And I also dropped into a really deep depression when I was, I guess I really noticed it when I was 18, and I had pretty severe panic attacks as well, which also ended up being a blessing. So when things kind of tipped, my first awakening consciously was in June 2013. I was in New Jersey and I was sitting outside my house, and a rabbit popped up. And I'm really friendly with animals. I'm a pretty weird human being. I was like, "Oh, hey, Benny, what's up?" And the rabbit came and it hopped next to me, which I thought was really interesting and cool. And I took selfies with it, and it ended up hanging out with me for about 5 minutes, which was kind of curious. And then it left, and it brought 2 more rabbits back with it, and they surrounded me, and they sat there staring at me for about 10 minutes. And I felt like Snow White, and it was a really profound experience. So I had gone inside, and I had mentioned that to my mom. And my mom was, at least at this time, the CEO of the Feng Shui Guild. She's this really powerful energy worker. In her most previous past life, she was a shaman in Hawaii. So she's kind of already in this realm, and I've been around this my whole life. but I just never really was kind of receptive to it until really like this moment started breaking me open. And she told me that this is one of my spirit animals, so to go research it. So I did, and the big thing I got from that was that I was going to meet somebody that was going to be changing my life dramatically. And I was like, okay, well, intuitively, what would I definitely be doing? And at this time in my life, I was really, really committed to going to concerts and raves. I lived about 10 minutes outside New York City, and what was really healing me from my depression and my anxiety was going just in these huge crowds of people and dancing. And then I found this, my impact in being able to connect with people on this really deep level of just listening to their story by going out. And that was really healing in itself. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm going to meet this person at this elaborate warehouse rave I was going to that weekend. So, okay, we'll flash forward to that rave. And I'm sitting inside this VW bus decked out in records. It was fabulous. And this gentleman hands me a blunt, which at the time, that was a really quick way to get to my heart, was through pot. So I look up, and I don't have a spiritual practice yet, but I'm kind of, following the omens, which I really, really started to do after this point. So I look up and I see this man with his etheric body just beaming at me. I mean, he was glowing white, like in the physical sense. And it was one of the more powerful experiences I've ever gone through. And I recognized him from, time's not linear, but past parallel life. I recognized his smile, and it was such an intense experience. And one of the biggest things I got from it was reassurance about the magnitude of love and the level in which we can connect with people, and the different levels of who we are. And this human being, before he'd even opened his mouth, I had this experience, but he comes back in turbulent times. He's been here for thousands of years, and he remembers multiple of his past lives. And he was about to go on this journey to travel the world. And he's at Harvard Law now, and he's infiltrating the system in that way. But what I really got from that was like, wow, I like, and I told him that, not to get ahead of myself, that I thought the rabbit was about him after we had this incredible experience, just speaking and looking at this man who's glowing white. What is going on? And he said his sign was the rabbit. So I was just like, my mind is blown open. And, for a year and a half, every time I spoke about him, I would cry. And it was a really, really, really powerful awakening for me. And I realized that there was something bigger happening, and that I needed to keep following the omens, and I needed to keep following my heart. So 2 weeks later, I packed up my stuff. I was glass blowing at the time, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to go glass blow all over the world and, follow my heart. So I definitely took a leap, and I fell on my ass, and I fumbled a bunch, and I was still really deeply in my subconscious, because I, of course, didn't realize at the time you have to do a lot of inner work before things become more clear and your manifestations become aligned with like your heart and your true path. But I was on my way. So the second really big opening I want to speak about happened on May 23rd, 2014. So I had, during this period when I was 18, I kind of discovered Adderall. And like I said, I was really severely depressed, and I had really bad panic attacks. Of course, Adderall did not help that, but I was prescribed a really large amount of it. And I really liked, even though it wasn't a real happiness, I really liked that elevated, joyful feeling. And I wasn't physically addicted. I was definitely psychologically addicted. And I truly didn't see a way that I would be stopping doing it. So I'm at Summer Camp Music Festival in 2014. And, Lane, we had been, emailing for 3 years now. And he's just doing all these incredible things. And I'm the gentleman I was speaking about before. And I really felt like I was ready for the next step. So this is the first time I said to the universe that, I'm ready, like, please contact me. Like, I want to keep this going. Yeah. So I guess, when you ask the universe for something to happen, it really does answer. So I ended up doing a little DMT, and in this experience, it came through with a man's voice, but he intercepted into my third eye, and I saw somatics, which is basically geometries based off certain frequencies. And the higher the frequency, the more elaborate the geometries. It really felt like I was dying, and I had to like rush to go meditate. And there was just so much voltage coming through me. And like you and I are talking now, I could hear this man's voice. And as he's speaking, these geometries are just projecting out of my third eye. And so it was a lot to ground down. And again, I did not have a spiritual practice. So a lot of these things, I feel blessed that I was able to integrate them and keep my sanity. But so he said that I was on the right path, but Adderall was preventing me from growing properly. And that this was the last time I was ever going to do it. And that was it. Essentially, it was a much more elaborate than that, but that was really the message I got. Right. And so May 23rd, 2014 was the last day I've ever done Adderall. Wow. Which was crazy in that time period of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah. So many openings in this like really short period. And so before I give really the last story, because these are usually I tell these stories by themselves because they are pretty elevating.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to, we're going to ground down for a second. So if everyone can just kind of go into your heart and breathe. And then through your ascension column or your spinal column, shoot your golden orb heart down to the center of Gaia's core and anchor there. And just deeply breathe or do whatever grounding practice that resonates with you. Great. Okay. So this last one happened in the summer of 2014, a little bit after May 23rd. I think it was July or August, but I was at my parents' house, and at the time they had lived in Portland, and they had this beautiful porch overlooking the Willamette River, and I was by myself, and my dogs I had Gabby and Marnie, these two awesome dogs with me. And I had taken a half of a dose of acid, and I was just relaxed. And all of a sudden, it started to feel like my spirit was getting pulled out of my body. Like something was kind of pinching different parts of me. And it was really quite unusual. And I do have quite a long history of psychedelics, and this was not a really regular response. So, I kind of go to the railings and I'm looking around, and it feels like everything shifted. Like I was by myself. Like I kind of flipped into another dimension. And then all of a sudden the wind, which it wasn't a regular wind. There was like an intelligence in this wind, and it started moving, but it was erratic and intelligent, the way it was just coming at me. And it was like all I could do to stay on my feet. And I really felt like I was getting pulled out of my body, and it was really quite intense. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at the sky, and there's these little green neon kind of illuminating dots everywhere. And, at the same time, when these experiences happen, your rational mind, you're like, this isn't really happening. Like, I'm not like, this cannot really be happening. And so I see this little red dot, and at the time, I'm like, oh, this is a drone. And it kind of comes down. It's definitely in the form of a spaceship. Like it has this little kind of roundish ball in the center where this red light is. And there's these, like winged out kind of circular flatter part, like kind of like a typical UFO. So I'm like, this is not real. Like this is a drone looking at me. So this ship or whatever you want to call it comes down, and it's right in front of me, and it's really shadowy, and I'm just kind of beside myself right now, and it's kind of moving back and forth watching me. So I'm like, okay. And, I had also, since the beginning, I had really been trying to get into the astral realms without much protection. And again, without a spiritual practice. So I look up at the sky as this is happening, and I don't remember it being a full moon, but there's, what I think is the moon, and it's so, so bright, and it's just beaming at me, and it's getting brighter and brighter. So I started to think that maybe a comet or a meteor was about to crash into the earth. And I started actually getting genuinely concerned because it's getting larger and larger.
Wow.
I'm just like, what is going on right now? Like, what is really happening? And then what really freaked me out was that it started bulbosing, and it came this like red hot ball started popping out of it like a fireball. And then I was like, all right, that's not the moon. And at the same time, all of these green dots in synchronicity like line up with this thing in the sky. Like they move up, I want to say a 45-degree angle to this thing. And I'm just like completely freaked out. So I run inside and I grabbed a selenite wand, and, I'm doing this like protection bubble around myself. And at the same time, I have these cold sweats. My body is uncontrollably shaking. The house is literally vibrating. And the crazier part is that I had never been around animals or another person at this time when these experiences happened. So my dogs, they were doing geometry in synchronicity around me, but it was like this energy was flowing through them that was completely uncontrollable. So I'm just like doing this bubble around myself with my selenite wand. And they did this thing where they lined up next to each other where they're perfectly parallel. And then they did this other thing where they came around and they touched paws, and they're both in this kind of yin and yang sort of looking thing. Yeah, it was pretty nuts. And then, so when I'm doing my selenite wand, and then they both put up a paw and triangulated with my selenite wand. And I'm just like, what is going on? And one of my dogs put her hand on my heart, and she's kind of looking at me like, how the hell are we communicating like this right now? Like, what is going on?
Wow.
And then I could feel that whatever was happening wanted me to come up into the spaceship. And I, in this moment, realized that I didn't know what I had contacted, and I did not feel protected. And I was not convinced that I didn't know what I contacted. I wanted to come back to Earth. It was all very, talking about ships coming down is one thing, but when the actual experience happens, it's a whole other ballgame. Yeah. So, and what had happened to me before, which I'll go into later. So through my phone, in my music, these entities started speaking to me, and it's like they would come through and just take like a chunk of a song, and then it would go dark, and then it would come through with another chunk of a song, just so they were able to communicate with me.
Like, what was one of those songs?
I can't remember the songs, but one of the things that I remember very specifically was it has said, "It will never be as easy as it is now." And that freaked me out.
Wow.
I felt like that wasn't super positive. And that also made me be like, yeah, no, I'm definitely not coming up. Yeah. Like, that's not happening. But I knew that there was a reason that I was able to remember these and that I was having this experience. So I kind of got ahead of myself to go back just a little bit. There was another time right before this and I used psychedelics at this point to connect. So I had taken mushrooms by myself, and I began to trance out, and I didn't really understand why, but I was losing consciousness like really, really intensely. Like I would be doing something for 30 seconds, and then the next couple seconds I would be kind of moving out of it. So I had laid down, and this was the first time that entities came through my music, and I thought I was just listening to a song, and it was telling me how to move my energy from different parts of my body and pull up through my third eye to astral project on my own. And it was really just teaching me how to do this without any kind of substance. I thought it was a song, so I kind of just went along with it. And it was only when it really started to work that I realized it wasn't a song. And this is also the second time that I had communication with this gentleman. So I got a little out of order there. So that UFO experience, that's the third experience I had. So just to go back. Yeah. Yeah. So this happens the second I finally get out of my body. I call it astral hovering. I was just right out of my body. And as I do it, there's this angelic like high pitched woman singing. It was super beautiful that was happening when I got to this point. And in that process, it felt like I died. Like I went through the whole experience of ego death and releasing everything. It's all really, 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 really intense, but it did feel somewhat out of my control. So there's this level of surrender and letting go that I'm getting better at. So I could literally see this translucent black veil over my eyes when I was in this state. And when I got there, this one tear came out of my face, and I call it a divine tear because it felt more like a reaction to getting to this point. And when I got to this point, I was able to communicate with this man, and I'm assuming all of these things are aspects of my higher self ultimately, now that I'm like looking back. But at the time it felt separate, and he sounded like a man. And he was telling me again, I'm on the right path. And we started doing energy work, sending love everywhere. And then he did a consensual surgery on me where they put an implant in the middle of my spine, as well as my ring finger in the little pad of my on my left hand. And he had said that's going to help stabilize energies, bring in downloads, and for me to just be able to communicate a little bit more easily. So throughout the years, sometimes when I meet people where there's a crazy resonance or I go through really powerful experiences, these points in my body vibrate in a really interesting way. And it's gotten less so in the beginning. When this happened, it was much more intense. Okay.
Wow.
So those are my 3 really crazy ET experiences. And so I started realizing after that third experience with the UFOs that I needed a spiritual practice, and that I needed to make sure what I'm communicating with is of light, and that I needed to get just more clarity about what is going on.
Yeah, wait, can I ask you a question about the implants?
Yes, please.
Because I have heard about implants before, but I've heard about them in like a negative context in a way of, so I'm just curious because you seem super sensitive to everything, and you were just talking about that story where you were like, no, I'm not coming up there. Yeah. I mean, you obviously use a lot of discernment. So what about that interaction made you like, yeah, let's do this consensual surgery, and yeah, to the implants? Like how did you make that decision? Like,
it was just it was so deeply intuitive. Like there was nothing in me that felt like it was of darkness. There was never even a question. It was like so rooted in my heart and so rooted in light. Like, he felt familiar too from the previous experience. That it wasn't until that UFO where I visually saw something that there was kind of a question.
Right.
Yeah. So just sticking with my intuition, I knew it was okay.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So then in August 2015, I went to Beloved's Sacred Art and Music Festival in Tidewater, Oregon for my first time. And I did Kundalini yoga for my first time with like 250 people. I had never chanted before. I definitely didn't understand the concept of group energy, which absolutely amplifies what you're doing. So I'm doing this, and, like I had said before, I used to do psychedelics to connect to source. That was really how I did it. But this time, during chanting, I literally could see my spirit glowing in gold, and I was shaking like as if an airplane was going through turbulence, but it was like my spirit about to blast off out of my body. And I got so high on my own that I immediately was just captivated. I was like, oh my God, what is this? So I pretty much haven't stopped meditating from there. And I dived into Kundalini teacher training. And that's all been great. I've been teaching for 3 years. But the last chunk of this really, of that kind of also following the omens and kind of following where your heart takes you and just keeping on going. So I jumped into teacher training kind of unorthodox. I came in halfway through. And then I was during my teacher training, I was at this class and we were doing the rebirthing series in Kundalini yoga, which is, a lot of people don't even do it. It's an exceptionally potent 33 series class, essentially, 33 different classes. And I went through a past life regression I had thought at the time. And I used to not talk about this anymore, but I have felt really called to share this with
I love past life regression. So.
Okay, cool. Okay. So all right, I went back and it was this medieval times, and actually until this point I thought that I was an alien, that this is my first Earth life. So I was like, oh, what is going on? And she had like really kind of gross, long, red, kind of greasy hair. And she had some kind of power that she had abused and manipulated people and kind of caught up to her. And she was severely tortured and mutilated. Like her left arm was chopped off and I could feel that. And she was killed and some horrible things happened to her. And it was interesting because it felt just like really casual. It just felt like a memory. It wasn't like whoa, it wasn't intense or anything, but it was really curious. And I thought it was odd because I was like, how can I be where I'm at and what I'm trying to do if I've like abused these powers like not so long ago? So I thought that was interesting and kind of brushed it off. So fast forward to 6 months later, I had to kind of follow my Kundalini yoga teacher. She was in Bali, and since I did things out of order, I had a year to finish my training, and that year ended while she was in Bali. So I worked 3 jobs for a year, and I pilgrimaged to Bali and finished my teacher training, and that was fine and dandy. And then while I was there, I heard about this high priestess of Bali, Ida Resti Alit. And she does these water purification ceremonies, and everyone in Bali was like, really raving about this woman. And they're like, you gotta go, you gotta go. All right. So I'm really open to that kind of stuff. So I went, and it was a really powerful experience. I went to her ashram, and she's chanting in the sacred sound current, and she's pouring water on people. And at that moment, she was working with a shaman, and it was a lot of people threw up, people passed out. It was the first time I ever saw an exorcism in my entire life. It was super, super real. Like, the second she started chanting, I was like physically shaking as if I was doing some like serious Kundalini yoga. Definitely the real deal. But it was like whatever. I felt like I was going to be grounded and clear, and that's how I felt in the ceremony. Nothing crazy happened to me then. But that night, I ended up having a dream that wasn't a dream, and that happens to me frequently too. And I ended up seeing this entity that I had gone through a past life regression with, except this entity now had a demonic face, and it was connected in the past. It was connected to me with a cord. And I was screaming the Mangala Charan at it, which is a protection mantra, a super powerful protection mantra in Kundalini yoga. And I was just screaming and screaming it at her. And I disconnected this connection. And I knew that because of Ida, like this was directly because of what I went through. And I would always say that the real reason I went to Bali was to experience this and to meet Ida. So that was nuts. But 2 years later, so this past May, Ida I found out she was in Portland, which is crazy because high priests or priests, they're not allowed to leave your ashram. But that said, like there is a caste system. So it's kind of like a traditional kind of rule because they make the rules. So it was just wild to me that she's in Portland. So I immediately go to one of her ceremonies. And I asked to, how can I help? How can I participate in Seva? And really beautifully, my relationship with her and the people around her developed really organically and quickly. And I had the deep blessing to go on tour with her. And so I was participating next to her in ceremony. And it was just me and her. And I was setting up her altar, taking down her altar, putting together the ceremonies, taking down the ceremonies, putting together private sessions. I was praying with her in her daily practice every day, and I was living with her. So I know that's a lot of information, and I definitely invite people to pause the video after listening to this to kind of sit with everything.
Oh, I love it. I feel like I'm on an adventure. I was just in Belize, and I was reading, I've seen the movie like several times, but Eat, Pray, Love, I was reading the book. And I feel like this is like Eat, Pray, Love, like the story of Eat, Pray, Love, but like on hyper speed and on like, and just so much more. I mean, so many other different dimensions of it, obviously, but just like that it ended in Bali. That's amazing. It's amazing you got to spend time with her. And wow. So when was that, Bali?
When I was in Bali and I first met her, that was at the end of 2016. That was December, like right in the beginning of December 2016. And then when I was on tour with her was this past May, when she came into Portland up until the end of July. And I had to take a break to kind of process everything.
Wow. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So those were amazing stories. So what's happening now?
Okay. So now I had some time to really process everything. And I did 18 ceremonies with her, not including the private sessions. And I've kind of been trying to figure out, like what is this? And, so now it's really been, and Ida going with her was a really big affirmation of all the other experiences that I've had. And I've learned that I am the path of following my heart and like really becoming public with that. So now my heart's taking me to LA and I'm, that's fine and dandy. And I teach Kundalini yoga here and there. So I'm about to do this CBD project in LA with that. But, wherever my heart takes me, I'm really just trusting the universe and the flow, and it's getting easier. It's a scary thing to just continually jump off a cliff. When I went on tour, I had 2.5 days to move out of my house. I was in massage schools teaching Kundalini yoga. I had to put everything in storage, and I just didn't know what was going to happen. But it was so tremendously rewarding. So I don't really know what's next, but I trust in my heart and the feelings in my heart and not the thoughts in my head. And I'm getting so much better at discerning that. And, our heart's electrical field is 60 times greater than the brain. And then our electromagnetic field in our heart is 100 times greater than our brain. So truly, it's much more accurate to follow our heart, the feelings in our heart. And I'm feeling like the more transparent and kind of out in the open I am with that, it feels really important for people to see that and kind of break through these, because we're also in the Aquarian age now. So Piscean age was looking externally for the truth. The Aquarian age is the truth is within. And what opens everyone's heart is different. That's why we're all expressed in a different body. So it's like really learning to listen to that inner voice. And I feel like that's one of my purposes is being in the public eye in that way.
Wow. So a question just popped into my head to ask you. Do you think that because I don't know why or what it is about you, but something do you think that your just presence and being with people and talking to people activates something in them? I mean, I know we all do to a certain we all activate each other in certain ways, but something about you is it's exciting me and also making me slightly scared of my own path at the same time. And I have this voice in my head that's yeah, that's what she's supposed to do. That's what you're doing. You're activating.
Wow, I love that you asked that question because most recently, when I was kind of thinking about, you were like, how would you present me? And I've really tried to stay away from labels, but I was really meditating on that. And as I was, I don't know, a month after meditating on that, this voice came into me and it was you're a galactic activator, you're a galactic activator. And there was no question, that was what's coming in. And now I was oh, okay, that's interesting. And as that happened, I was driving and I came around a corner and there's this huge rainbow and I could see the beginning of the rainbow. And I was wow, that's quite the affirmation. So it's cool that you said that, because I do, that rings true to me in my heart. Very true to me.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's almost like, I don't know, because it's kind of, it feels to me like you're so tuned into like your truth, you know, and you're just so authentic with it. Like there's very little screens up. There's very little distortion. You're like so tuned in that it's almost like the bell of truth is like being rung in me. And it's like scary because we live in a world, you know, which isn't, I mean, everybody's working on it, like, but you know, we're very caught up in the story and we're very caught up in society and what's going on. And so even people who I think are, I don't know. I just think there's something about you that's like activating something in me. Then it's just really interesting. So I think you're right. Like, I think your purpose is definitely to be in the public eye and like to be telling these stories and to be just out there with people, because it's like, I love to use the phrase, I love to think of each of us as like crystals and how each one of us can be the crystal. And, you know, different crystals do different things, you know, like some are really powerful for grounding and some are really powerful for like your crown chakra and some are open your heart and whatever. And I feel like you're a very potent crystal right now. So thank you for sharing all these stories and sharing everything that, you know, you've been experiencing. I think it's really powerful, and I'm sure I am not alone in those feelings. I'm sure you're going to hear from many more listeners.
Wow, you're welcome, and thank you for reflecting that. Fuel to my fire, as Brandon would say.
Exactly. Well, okay, so I have another question for you. And I feel like you'll have some good answers for this. So what is one thing or even a couple things that you think would benefit every P head to know or understand as they continue on their own journey?
I would definitely go back to the path of the heart. So like really learning how to discern your thoughts from your heart, because our thoughts tend to be our ego, which is still going to be based in illusion. In your heart, like I was saying, your heart's electrical field is about 60 times greater, and this is from heart math, than the electrical activity in your brain. And that's measured through the ECG, that's an electrocardiogram. And then furthermore, your magnetic field produced from your heart is 100 times greater in strength than what's in your brain. So it's just like something to really sit with. So there's science to back up that your heart is more accurate at making decisions than your brain. And they found that there's like 44,000 neuron-like cells in your heart that think, like make their own decisions, all kinds of things, completely separate from your brain. So if we could really, really, really get in tune with our feelings and what brings you joy, like just try, like, you know, try not to think about like what expectations are like getting thrown at you. What is like your natural joy, and start following that. And these opportunities that align with who you are and what's going to expand you and bring you to your highest are going to start coming at you. But it really has to start with believing. And you kind of just have to reprogram yourself in that way. And eventually you're going to start having these profound experiences that are going to back up that belief. But just start following your joy, following your excitement. And there's just so much that comes from there, and keeping your heart open at all costs too. Huge.
Yeah, definitely. What if someone doesn't know like how to listen to their heart? Like what if, because I think a lot of us too, you know, have been so, I mean, and I guess you just give an answer of like follow your joy, but like, what if someone doesn't really know the difference between the heart and the head?
It's a really great question. So if you were to ask yourself maybe a question like that, like how do I know, or do I really like this? Your heart will answer you before you're done asking the question, but your mind will start to go on a tangent. It'll be like, well, I like this, blah, 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 blah. And it starts kind of just going on a long sentence. So if that is happening, that is your mind. Yeah, like yes or no question. It's going to, before you are done asking your question, your heart will answer.
Wow. I like that. That's powerful. Awesome. Actionable advice. Cool. Well, is there anything else that I feel like you're just, I feel like you have so much that you could share. Is there anything else that you feel called to share with everyone? Yeah.
I feel like that is a lot of information for right now for everyone to kind of soak in. I think that's good.
Great. Okay. Well, what if people want to contact you? Is that something that you'd be open to?
Yeah, absolutely. I have an Instagram, Kelsey Schmelsey. That's all one word, Kelsey. And then Schmelsey is SHMELSEY. You can also email me. That's K Bornstein, which is B as in boy, ORN as in Nancy, STEIN as in Nancy, 90@gmail.com. I also have a Facebook, Kelsey Schmelsey. I'm not really on it, but you're welcome to friend me and I'll accept all of you. And I'm so happy to answer any questions. Connect.
Awesome. Well, Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories and your wisdom. I like thoroughly enjoyed it. And like I said, I've been thoroughly activated, I think. So thank you so much. I really appreciate connecting with you.
You're welcome. Thank you too, Alexa.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for this week's episode. If you're a listener with a story to share and are interested in being featured on a future episode of this special series, you can email me at alexa@positivehead.com. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear Brandon constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place we know of to do it. Period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Otherwise, tune in next Friday for another P-Head Posse episode. And until then, as Brandon always says, journey well.